Hey folks, yeah, I've changed my cameras and I haven't updated the look there yet, so I'll just sit down here for a moment. How's it going? Hope everything is going well for you so far during the beginning of the week anyway. Yeah, I'm just getting some stuff here together. I'm going to actually change the look and feel of my studio after this semester once we're done with all the live streams. In fact, the last couple of live streams, you might see a different look and feel. I'll share with you a little bit about what I'm doing during our break, but I was just kind of getting all that together. Hey, so this is what we're going to do today. You know, the last while, since the beginning of the semester, we've been kind of building up capitalism, right? Or at least building the building blocks. All right, collecting the building blocks and assembling them to come up with capitalism, right? And so we talked about profit motive and private capital and free markets, laissez-faire, and the invisible hand. And we've got all these things, right? Okay, great, fantastic. So, yay, capitalism wins. Yeah, well, okay, now, I got to be clear. I'm a fan of capitalism. I've lived in several economic systems, and I thrive best in capitalism. However, it has its problems. It has its faults. And you are not doing any system any favors by saying it's perfect as is, leave it alone, you can't make anything better. We have an obligation to ourselves, to each other, to our future posterity, and so forth, to make this economic system the best we can. All right, so great. Now, what are the problems? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to explore some of the issues surrounding capitalism. We're actually going to talk about this today and next week, all right? And the way we're going to do that is we are going to discuss some of the ideas of Karl Marx and Adam Smith. Now, okay. For those of you who know, you know Karl Marx is kind of the godfather of communism. He didn't invent communism, but he was a philosopher who really articulated it very, very well, okay? And he's pretty much demonized in the West, you know, communism and so on. Don't get me wrong, communism, not a fan at all. But he's demonized, and his ideas are demonized. You know, if he has anything to do with an idea, because he's Karl Marx, godfather anyway, of communism, we don't listen to him. That's a mistake, especially since we're also going to talk about Adam Smith. And for those of you who remember, you might be like, hold on, didn't Adam Smith write Wealth of Nations? Isn't that like the seminal work of capitalism? Yes, it is. It is the seminal work of capitalism. Well, then, how can Adam Smith and Karl Marx agree on anything? That doesn't make any sense at all that they would agree on anything. Well, it turns out they agree on a lot. Okay, and so that's what we're going to explore here a little bit. So let's get into this. First thing I'm going to do, we're going to first play with Karl Marx a little bit and the idea of alienated labor. And to do that, let's see, I think I need to get out of the way here a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and, wrong button, Lon. Okay, I'm out of the way. So now we can just focus on this. So here are the concepts of capitalism. So take, for example, the profit motive. And profit motive is great and fantastic. It's constant progression and improvement of the current state. We always want to do better. We always want to better our material lot. What could possibly go wrong? Well, now, here's the problem. It means that we are constantly dissatisfied with our current state, the state in which we exist. So here's the idea, folks. We are never not in our current state. Your entire life, from birth to death, you are in a perpetual state of current, which means, according to the profit motive, you are in a perpetual state of dissatisfied. You are forever dissatisfied with your current state. You always want more. This is an issue, okay? Next one, we have private capital, all right? Investing of wealth benefits the society as a whole in the form of jobs, taxes, and access to capital. True, true, true. It works great. Well, what's the problem? Well, investment of wealth creates disproportionate wealth, power, and privilege for the very small minority of the off the labor of the majority. So what do I mean by this? I mean that with the way investment works, and we talked about how investment works when we talked about the Puritan work ethic and so forth, is literally the rich get richer. And I'm not saying that in the derogatory sense. What I'm saying is, in order to get rich, you have to have capital. And so you invest and invest and invest. And after a while, you're just investing billions to make more billions. Now, what's happening with you and me during that time? We're not investing billions to make billions. We're not even investing thousands to make tens of thousands. We're just basically trying to get through life 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. Yes, we have access to capital and so forth, but this is access to capital just kind of maintain, hopefully, some sort of middle class. And so as the rich get richer and richer and richer through no fault of their own because they're just investing, yes, it helps the system as a whole, but those people who are the majority, they will never get rich in this system because it's all held by those in power today. Okay? So then let's keep going. We've then got the free market. Encourages innovation, which delivers new features, better quality, lower prices. Yes, it really, really does. The free market works incredibly well in terms of features and quality and prices and new inventions and so forth. All right, well, then what's the problem? Well, it creates contrived needs to keep people purchasing. Prices some people out of the market for basic needs. So what am I saying here? Well, it means that we are funneling a ton of resources to making things like, I'm making another video for another channel right now, and one of the things I'm going to be talking about are Birkenstocks. Back when I was a kid, Birkenstocks were hippie sandals. All right. And I had a pair because I was raised by hippies. Now Birkenstocks are like this huge, chic thing. We are funneling a ton of money and resources and energy toward, creating things that we don't really need, but we want. We think they're really, really cool. I'm going to share with you things that I've been buying that I don't need, but I wanted. Okay. All right, well, then that's great. But then that also means that we are funneling fewer resources to things that we really need more as a society. And furthermore, some people priced out of the market because we can charge whatever the market will bear. Okay, but maybe I can't afford what the market will bear. Well, that's too bad. Okay, so that's the issues with the free market system. Okay. Then we've got ourselves laissez-faire. Enables a natural, harmonious, and self-regulating system to work efficiently. On the other hand, a natural system is amoral and so lacks a moral compass and devalues what makes us human. So, Yeah, natural systems are great if you want natural outcomes. And natural outcomes sometimes are mothers eating their young and, killing of our own kind and slavery. Yes, it happens in nature, ants, okay? And parasitic relationships. I mean, all kinds of horror movie stuff. We don't do this no, we don't want to do this in society because we want to maintain a moral framework, a moral compass. And so laissez-faire doesn't really account for the moral aspect of humanity. Okay, last one here. We've got ourselves the invisible hand, allows value to flow freely, where it can create further value and so on and so forth, regardless of the intent of the value created. Yep, it works. Not all value creation is rewarded equally, either monetarily or in terms of influence. So, for example, just because of the way the system works in the invisible hand, and we won't go into detail on this, but just to give you an example, a K through 12 teacher, an elementary school teacher, does not make as much as a professional football player, okay? But in terms of value brought to society, a K through 12, let's just say fifth grade, a fifth grade teacher brings more value to society than the professional football player. Well, then why is the professional football player paid more? Because the professional football player brings more monetary value to the system. And so the system, this invisible hand, values monetary value over societal value. So these are some of the concerns, right? Okay, so here's my point. My point is that, once again, I'm a fan of capitalism. I like it. I think it works for me. But it has issues. And so what did Karl Marx say were some of the issues? Well, let me show you something. These folks are preparing bread. They're making bread, okay? And check this out. It's a community activity. These folks are working together. They are kneading the bread. They're hands-on making the bread. They're using their expertise and their competence. They know what they're doing. These folks have been making bread a long time. They know how to divide the labor and they know how to bring it together. And the bread becomes something more than bread. It becomes this artifact of the community, and it nourishes the community. This is awesome. Okay, so they're making bread. Later today, I'm going to make some shortbread cookies. I'm a big fan of shortbread cookies, and I got this recipe, so I'm going to be making some. Okay, all right. Now, check this out. These people are making bread too. But now, okay, they lifted a bag. Yay, they lifted a bag, and they're dumping it into a machine. And the machine is kneading the bread. He is not making bread. He is pushing buttons. He's pushing buttons. They are not forming it into loaves. They are pushing buttons of machines that form it into loaves. This poor schmuck here, his job is to make sure the machine is doing its job. He is not making bread. He's babysitting a machine and pushing buttons. And we have more machines that bring it all together and put it into kneading machines, and yet more machines that put it into the who's-a-ma-what's-its, and then it goes into the oven. Hey, look, a human being. Yay, human beings. The human being pulled it out of the oven, okay? This is not making bread. This is running machinery. Machinery that is designed to be as smart and low maintenance as humanly possible. This machinery was designed to be run by folks with no education working on minimum wage with minimal instruction. Okay? These are not rocket scientists. These are just folks who've been trained how to push the buttons at the right time. Okay. So, here's the issue. Karl Marx believes that work, producing something, fulfills our species' essence. In fact, the way that we really show off who we are, the way we express ourselves, the way that we put our stamp of value on the community is through work. That's important stuff, right? So he says here, this is from the reading, animals are solely trying to survive. Human beings are supposed to be more creative and free. If a person's primary activity is laboring for a wage needed to survive, then they are no more like an animal than a human. They are more like an animal than a human. They are alienated from their species. In other words, in order for somebody to feel fully human and fully alive and of worth and value to the community, they need to be able to work. They need to be able to create. They need to be able to express themselves in their product. If they can't do this, they're not really fully human. They're not fulfilling their species' essence. Again, from the reading, man is a creature of his species, that he is a conscious being, that he is able to direct his life activity, and that he treats his own life as a subject matter and as an object of his own determination. Alienated labor reverses this relationship. Man, the self-conscious being, turns his chief activity, labor, which should express his profound essence, into a mere means of physical existence. Okay, so once again, he's saying, listen, we are intelligent, self-determining beings. We have an understanding of the future. We understand our mortality. We understand where we fit into the collective, and it is through work that we establish ourselves in this. And so when work is not a form of creativity and expression and giving and value, but instead is just so I can pay my bills this week and eat, then we are robbed, we are alienated from our species' essence. Okay, that's his idea. Now, he says there's 4 types of alienation. Let's go ahead and work through these 4 types of alienation. And we're going to kind of come to find some examples for ourselves as well. We want to start getting these light bulbs going, folks. Let's fire these bad boys up. Okay, the first one here is alienation from the product. All right, so as I say here, a baker is close to the product. Remember, those bakers were kneading the bread and chatting and having fun, and they were really forming it, and they knew what consistency they wanted. When I make shortbread later today, I really struggle with the consistency. It becomes too crumbly. I'm still working on that. A baker is close to the product. On the other hand, someone pushing a button on a massive bread making machine, it should be bread making, not break making, is alienated. So they're not, when somebody's just there pushing a button, they're not close to the product. They're not making bread. They're just pushing a button, okay? Alienated from the product. A baker makes all the profit. Someone pushing a button makes only a tiny portion of the profit. Okay, so check this out, folks. If I am making bread and selling bread, I get all the profit. So maybe I just listened to a podcast yesterday about food trucks. And food trucks, they really shoot for 10 to 15% profit margin. Now, my son is in the culinary program at Salt Lake Community College, and I was talking to him about this, and he said, yeah, 10% profit margin is about what we look for and so forth. Okay, great. So you sell the bread, you get the profit. On the other hand, these people who are just pushing buttons, they're getting minimum wage. All that profit is going to the owners, to the people who own the factory, to the people who own the machines and so forth. Now, there's a reason for this. They invested in it. It was a risky proposition. Everything comes down to them, all that good stuff. But the fact is that when all you're doing is pushing a button, you're not getting the profits. Many of you are probably in jobs where, okay, you're paid a wage, and maybe it's a fair wage. Maybe you make $12 to $16 an hour, somewhere in there. But the owners are making, tens of thousands of dollars an hour. So, yeah, that's alienated from the product. All right. Next one. There we go. Hey, do me a favor. Somebody say hi. I want to make sure that we're streaming, that this is working. Hey, Raphael, all right. Okay. I feel a lot better because I've been sitting here going, I don't see anybody. I'm all alone. Okay. We got alienation from the product. Okay. Oh, no, we talked about that one. Let's do alienation from one's own labor. Okay. Oh, we've got lots of folks. Great. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. I'm glad to know that I'm not talking to that I'm actually streaming. Sometimes with technology, you're like never quite sure. Anyway, alienation from one's own labor. The baker is involved in every aspect of the process, right? Remember in that video we saw, they're pouring the flour, and they're putting in the milk and the eggs and the sugar, and they're kneading it, put in a little bit more salt, kneading it again, then they're forming it into loaves, and they're involved in every single process, every single step, all right? The worker does just one small repetitive task. Small, repetitive, monotonous, low value, just push a button, pull a lever, move the next section. Push a button, pull a lever, move to the next section. They're just doing this over and over and over, okay? They're not involved in every single step of the process. They're just selling their mechanical labor for wages. So now this is one of the reasons you guys are in school. You're kind of like, all right, I want to do more than just get paid to lift stuff, right? Once again, my son, who's in the culinary program and so forth, years and years and years ago, he said, gee, I want a better paying job. And I said, well, what do you have to offer besides your labor? All you know how to do is lift stuff and move stuff and pour stuff. What do you have? It's the education, whether it be a degree or a certification or an internship or an apprenticeship, it doesn't matter. It's the education that provides a skill that says, oh, I know how to do this stuff especially well. Please pay me. Okay, then we have alienation from others. Since workers are not connected to the product in a meaningful way, they are not connected with one another in a way that gives them a sense of purpose and community, okay? Everybody's there just kind of doing their thing. They're pushing their button. They're watching their monitor. They're filling out their TPS reports and so forth. Nobody's really feeling like they are part of something bigger, creating something bigger. When it comes to having a place in the community, I run a kneading machine is not the same as saying I'm a baker. This is something that I noticed very early on in my career. When I was a When I was at Intel, one of my jobs was I was a communications operations manager. So comms ops, communications operations manager. And people would ask me, what's that? Now, it's not good when somebody asks, what's that? Because what they're saying is, I don't know where you fit in the community. I don't know the value you bring. If you say, I'm a doctor, people immediately know your worth to the community, what you do and your worth. If I'm an engineer, if I'm an attorney, if I'm a professor, if I'm, whatever, right? But if you say I'm a communications operations manager, it's like, what is that? That's alienated from others. This puts workers at odds for one another as they look out for themselves rather than the collective. Mary here says, I would assume there is some more alienation in corporations rather than ma and pa business. Excellent point. Excellent point. You see, now in a ma and pa business, you're not alienated from the work because it's yours. So for example, Mary, as a matter of fact, Mary, I'm going to give you 2 light bulbs for that. Because check this out. I run Nutshell Brainery. All this stuff that you see here. Now, I'm using it for Salt Lake Community College because I want to provide this to my students. But I make videos and so on and so forth and lecture videos and so on. And I don't feel alienated from the work because I'm involved, right? Ma and pa shops, they're involved in every single aspect. Whereas a big corporation, when I worked at Intel, oh my gosh, I was alienated. So excellent point. Claire says companies try really hard to artificially create that community and morale, but the people on the ground usually don't dig that. The HR manager and supervisor just pat each other on the back. So stinking true. So true. So true. As a matter of fact, that's going to be another two light bulber right there. I could go on and on and on about that one, Claire, because I worked for a large corporation and I worked in HR. And my PhD is in organizational psychology, which is trying to create this we're all in this together thing when the systems don't necessarily support it. I could go on and on about that. I won't, but you're getting the idea. Okay. Then we have alienation from oneself. Labor fulfills our species' essence to create and express ourselves in our accomplishment, but capitalism robs workers of their species' essence, that thing that makes them human. They are denied the opportunity to create, innovate, critically analyze, problem solve, and affect an outcome. Okay? Now, Adam Smith is going to go into more detail on this, but for the sake of this slide, what we're saying here is that, why am I happy in my job? I am happy in my job as a professor at Salt Lake Community College because I get to create, innovate, critically analyze, problem solve, and affect an outcome. I am given the ability to do that, and perhaps some of you are in positions where you can. However, some of you might also be in positions where management basically says, this is how you do it. You do A, B, and C, and you just do A, B, and C over and over. If you have ideas, we have a suggestion box. Oh, yay, suggestion box, right? And management is always coming and saying, this is how we're going to do things now. And this is how we're going to do things. And if you say, I have some ideas, they're like, yeah, okay, but no, right? This is what Karl Marx is concerned about. All right. Where have you felt these? Where have you felt any of these? I felt some of these when I was at Intel. Now, I want to be really clear. I love Intel. Oh my gosh, do I love Intel. I actually still live my life today. It's been over a decade since I worked for Intel. But I still live my life today along many of the cultural principles and tools and processes that I learned while at Intel. Nevertheless, as you know, Mary points out, it was a large corporation. It's hard to feel like you're an integral part of what's going on when there are 80,000 employees. I've also felt like this when I was in, smaller positions and so forth. Where have you guys felt any of these feelings of alienation from the product? Do you really get to feel like you see that product go out and you've been able to, put your stamp on the product? Or are you just filling out forms and so forth? Now, I'll continue on, but give me your thoughts there on that. Now, here's the thing, folks. We just talked about Karl Marx. And remember, according to Western propaganda and ideology, we are required by law to disregard everything Karl Marx says because he's a damn communist, right? But the thing is, Adam Smith agrees with him. And we're going to read some Adam Smith. Mary says, by the way, raises are merit raises, and you don't get raises annually or biannually on the value of your hard work because of how many employees are that. Yeah. There's this idea out there of a meritocracy, which is, you're rewarded and paid for the value you bring. Wonderful idea, but it's really, really, really hard to put in place from an HR, standpoint. And so often they talk about meritocracy, but it's not really delivered all of the time. Claire says, even if you get a raise, it doesn't keep up with inflation. That's actually really true right now. So the term that you might be familiar with is called real income. So real income, you've got your income. But then the real income is what can that income buy you? And lately, you've probably been getting maybe 4 or 5% raises, which is nice. But inflation has gone up 8 to 9%, right? So that means that even though you are making more money in terms of your paycheck, your ability to buy what you could buy 2 years ago has reduced. So your real income has actually reduced, even though your actual income has gone up. Cola and merit. Yeah, okay. Yes. Raphael, on the company where I work, they did an employee appreciation day and they gave us 25-cent raise. Oh, gosh. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. Yeah. Oh, gosh. That's embarrassing. Okay, let's come over to Smith here. Okay. Now, remember, we just read Karl Marx, and we're not supposed to agree with him, but we're supposed to worship the ground that Adam Smith walks on. So check out what he says. The man whose whole life is spent in performing a few small operations, of which the effects, too, are perhaps always the same or very nearly the same, has no occasion to exert his understanding or to exercise his invention in finding out expedients for removing difficulties which never occur. He naturally loses, therefore, the habit of such exertion and generally becomes as stupid and ignorant as is possible for a human creature to become. Okay, so here's Raphael. Hey, 4 hours a week, I get it. All right, sure, right? So let's play with this here. What Adam Smith is saying is, listen, if a worker, and this was especially the case in the Industrial Revolution and so forth, if a worker is just doing one small, simple, repetitive task over and over and over, and it's pretty much not a perfect system, but there's no real opportunity for the worker to improve the system, improve the process, and just doing it over and over and over, the worker will lose the ability to problem solve, to analyze, to critique a situation, to invent a solution or innovate a solution. The worker will lose the ability to do all these things and become as stupid and ignorant as is possible for a human creature to become. In other words, it's his species essence. If a worker is not able to exercise their species essence of problem solving and innovation and critiquing and all that sort of stuff, then they'll lose the ability to do it and they will no longer be a human. This is what it's saying. By the way, Jordan here says, performance raises or bonuses also manipulate it only to, yeah. It's not always super duper, here, let's do this one. It's not always clear on how those work, on how the bonuses are paid out and so forth. It's pretty opaque. And when something is opaque and not transparent, it's hard for workers to trust it. Totally agree. Okay. Claire, the boss makes $1 and I make a dime. Yes, this is what we are talking about here. This is why one of the things that Karl Marx points out, by the way, Claire, to your point, is he says, listen, the harder an employee works, the poorer they become. Now, watch the logic here for a moment. Okay, bear with me. Let's say that I am paid $15 an hour. And during $15 an hour, I can produce 10 widgets. So in 1 hour, I produce 10 widgets. And the company then goes off and sells these widgets. Now, if I get really good at my job and I really learn the system and so on and so forth, I can then create 12 widgets an hour. But now check this out. I am still paid $15 for that hour. But instead of creating 10 widgets, I am creating 12 widgets because of my expertise. I don't get the benefit of that increase of 2 widgets. The employer gets the benefit. That's all gravy. Therefore, the more expert I become and the more value I create, I'm creating that value for somebody else, not for myself. That's one of his criticisms. The more promotions I've gotten, the less productive. Sometimes that's the way it is, right? Yeah. But at the bottom, it's never enough. Yes. Totally agree. Okay, continuing on with Karl Marx. The torpor of his mind, kind of the health of his mind, renders him not only incapable of relishing or bearing a part in any rational conversation. In other words, he's become so stupid he can't even engage in a rational conversation, but of conceiving any generous, noble, or tender sentiment, and consequently of forming any just judgment concerning many even of the ordinary duties of private life. In other words, this person becomes wasted. They can't hold an intelligent conversation. They can't really analyze information. They can't even hold a just judgment of a situation. And their ability to function in a society decreases. This is Adam Smith, folks, not Karl Marx. So you see there's some agreement on the problems of capitalism. Now, we're going to talk about solutions. Don't worry. I'm just saying that there are issues. Let's see. Raphael says, what's crazy is when the company increases the start wages of old employees are paid. Yes. Okay. So that is actually really common, right? So you're employed and you're making $15 an hour, but they're having a really hard time bringing on new employees. So the only way they can compete is by increasing wages. So they'll be hiring on new employees at $16 an hour. This is really common. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. All right, so this is talking about the general situation. So what about the workers? To what degree can they influence this situation? Well, the problem is, now, I want to be clear. This was more back in the day. However, the spirit of what we're about to talk about is alive and well today. The laws have changed. The expectations have changed. But the spirit of what we're about to talk about, it's the same. Okay? So let's explore this. Once again, this is Adam Smith. He says the masters, the owners, they'll always prevail. They'll always win. The workmen desire to get as much, the masters to give as little as possible. The former are disposed to combine and in order to raise, the latter in order to lower the wages of labor. So he's just basically saying, listen, there's this dynamic going on. Employees want to work as little as possible and get paid as much as possible. Employers want to pay as little as possible, but get as much work as possible. So we have this dynamic going on, okay? It is not, however, difficult to foresee which of these two parties must, upon all ordinary occasions, have the advantage in the dispute and force the other into compliance with their terms. The masters prevail. Now, why? Okay? Now, here's the first thing. The masters, being few in numbers, can combine more easily. All right, so here's what he's saying. Look at that picture, folks. What do you see? I see a bunch of old white males. And actually, I don't see a bunch of old white males. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It sounded like Sesame Street. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I see 9 old white males. When it comes to the bosses, the owners, and so forth, there's not that many of them. Okay? Tech giants, there's maybe 12 tech giants out there. When there's a conference of tech giants, there's not that many. Furthermore, and this is still the case today, all these tech giants, they live in the same neighborhoods. Their kids go to the same schools. They vote for the same candidates. They go to the same country clubs, and they hobnob with the same politicians. So they're very homogeneous in their thinking for the most part. In other words, they agree on 80% of everything, and they all want to make money. They're all old white males. They can get together. They can agree on things. On the other hand, workers, we're a hot mess, people. There are tens of millions of workers. We are every age, every race, every gender, every ethnicity, every political persuasion. We live all over neighborhoods and economic circumstances and so forth. We can't agree on anything. We can't agree on anything. And so if you've got two forces working against each other, and one group can agree on 90% of everything and have power, and the other group can't even agree on the name of their group, guess who's going to win? This is Adam Smith. Claire says, come on, guys, class solidarity. Yeah, this is the whole solidarity thing, right? I was around during the solidarity movement in Poland and so forth, Solidat, and yeah, I'm old. That's why we have bipartisan politics. That's why we have bipartisan politics to prevent that. Yes. I strongly agree with that. Good movie. He just passed away, by the way. He passed away like 3 or 4 days ago. Donald Sutherland. That was from the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the second one. Yeah, Donald Sutherland. Donald Sutherland, that was from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, a remake. Donald Sutherland also played Donald Sutherland. Oh, he played the President Snow in the Hunger. Well, there it is. Yeah, Claire. He played most recently played President Snow in the Hunger Games. He was excellent, an amazing actor. He was also in the movie MASH. He was whole bunch of things. My generation, right? Just passed away a couple of days ago. Yes, Claire, he was the dad in Pride and Prejudice. And then what a sweet dad he was in that, right? I really liked him in that role. That was a beautiful role for him. Okay, so that's the first thing, few in number. Second, the law, besides, authorizes or at least does not prohibit the employer's combination, while prohibits those of the workmen. Okay? So now let's talk. What this is talking about is, combinations, right? Getting together and collusion and so on and so forth. Let's first talk about the employers. Now, at the time, it was not really prohibited for the big, robber barons to get together and agree on things and run the economy. And at the time, it was illegal for employees to organize, to form unions. I mean, BS, okay? But yeah, employees were not allowed to form unions and employers could, more or less. Well, today it's the opposite, but, okay. Can employers get together and collude and so forth? It's illegal. But if you take an economics class, you'll understand that there's implicit and explicit collusion. And employers still kind of get together somewhat. It's illegal, but it happens. Now, workers can unionize. However, the courts have really made this very, very, very difficult. It's very difficult for workers today to unionize. That said, unions are going through a renaissance right now, and they should, okay? So there's this struggle where the employers are always fighting unions because they don't want them to unionize, because if employees unionize, then they have more power and authority, and it's the struggle. It's an eternal struggle. Number 3, in all such disputes, the masters can hold out much longer. A landlord, a farmer, a master manufacturer, or a merchant, though they did not employ a single workman, could generally live a year or two upon the stocks which they've already acquired. Many workmen could not subsist a week. Few could subsist a month, and scarce any a year, and so on and so forth. So here's what it's saying. is that if there's a dispute between employers and employees, and the employees go on strike, the employers can last much longer than the employees can. How much savings do you have? Do you have enough savings to live a week, a month? You think you have enough savings to live a year? It's really, really, really hard on an employee to go on strike. Whereas the company, I have oodles of billions of dollars in the bank. I can just sit around and wait. So for the most part, the employers can last longer than the employees. Mary says, by the way, is the writer's strike a good example? The writer's strike and the actor's strike were great examples, okay? Just so you know, writers and actors, yes, there's a small minority who make big bucks. The vast majority of writers and actors are just working actors paid by the gig and just do little things here, there, so on and so forth. It's just a job. Same with writing and so forth. And so it became this challenge of who could hold out longer. And the studios held out a really, really long time, but the actors and the writers, 2 different strikes, 2 different unions, they won out. Let's see, I have enough savings for -3 months, right? Let's see, I have enough savings to retire until I die. The only thing is I have to die tomorrow, right? Ain't that the truth? Yeah. You know what that means? Not enough for chicken nuggets. Oh my gosh, yeah, with 65 cents, you can't even afford chicken nuggets. On unions, haven't been impressed with Starbucks lately. Yeah, you know, I want to be clear about this. Unions are like anything else. They can be good, they can be bad. Most of the time, they are both. But you know what? Companies can be good, they can be bad. Most of the time, they're a little bit of both. And employers and bosses and so forth. So, yeah, I would love to live in a world where everybody treated everybody fairly and, you know, weren't trying to get rich off the back of the workers, and the workers weren't trying to, you know, force management into ridiculous decisions because it helps the employees' pension and retirement and so forth. But that's not how it is. When the writers went on strike, I supported that one. I sent them a few bucks and so forth, just a few bucks. We're not talking a lot. Point is, I supported that strike because of what they were striking for, and with AI and with what studios have been doing lately. I follow the industry sort of kind of a little. But then there are other cases where I'm kind of like, you're a useless union, but I also see useless employers. So it's all over the map, right? Yeah. So Starbucks, great example. Great example. All right, number 4. Let's see. Oh, no, that was 3. Oh, just 3 reasons. Okay. By the way, like I said here, the Supreme Court has been working against unions lately. Here are a bunch of Supreme Court decisions against unions. On the other hand, 2023 was considered the year of the strike because there were so many strikes in 2023. So this is what I mean by unions making a renaissance lately, okay? So here's my thesis, finally. Both Adam Smith and Karl Marx express alienation and the power of those in power in very similar terms, but their solutions are very different, okay? So if Marx and Smith walked into a bar and had a political discussion, they would agree on most of the problems. Where they profoundly disagree is on the solutions. And we're going to be talking about that going forward. Sent them chicken. Yes. I sent them chicken nugget money. Yeah. I have a philosophy when it comes to giving, Claire, and it's just my philosophy. I am not inviting anybody else to share it. I am not advocating it. I am not preaching it. My philosophy is I give the amount that if 10% of the population were to give the same amount, we could solve the problem. Okay? So, for example, I give to Road Home, for homeless, and I give to Shriners Hospital for different reasons, and I give to the food bank, and so a few things, right? But I don't give a lot. I want to be clear. First of all, I spread my giving out to multiple causes. I don't have just one pet cause. I spread it out to multiple. And then I also kind of calculate if 10% of the American population were to give that amount, then it would solve the problem. So I don't try to solve the problem myself. I try to be part of the 10%, right? That sort of thing. So, I was giving you crap, but it adds up. When I was homeless, I got through some spicy McNuggets. I know you were giving me crap, but that's okay. And Claire, I can't say been there, done that, got the T-shirt, but close. So we'll talk sometime. I'm with you. Okay, so let's keep going. Now, what I want to do next, we're going to do our break. We're going to do a quick break, and then we are going to explore these ideas through an essay, not an essay, it was an interview with Mike Lefebvre, okay? So let's go ahead and do a break. What we're going to do is, it'll probably be 4 minutes or so. Maybe we'll start back up at top of the hour. So if you need to run off to the bathroom, if you need to get a drink, if you need to go pet the dog or something, we can go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you something here in the meantime. By the way, Julian says the ATC strike in the 1980s during Ronald Reagan. Yes. Oh my gosh. So for those of you who don't know, and don't worry, we're on break, but we're just talking because Julian brings up a really good example here. This was the airline traffic controller strike in the 1980s. Julian, I remember it well. I'm that old, okay? They all went on strike, and Reagan basically said, if you don't come back, you're fired. And that substantially gutted the power of unions, because here's the President of the United States saying, no, I don't care that you're a union. I don't care that you have the legal rights. I'm just going to make the unilateral decision. I get where Reagan was coming from, but I also get where the strikers were coming from. Government did not want to provide it, right? They're an essential workforce, but yeah, totally undermined the strike and the strength of unions. It was ever since the 1980s that union power started to drop off. It's only been in the last decade that it started to tick up a little bit. But that's because things have changed so much. Okay, we're still on break. I'm going to show you something. So I'm actually going to be redesigning my studio here a little bit, and for a whole bunch of reasons. But one thing I got for it is this. Now, if you recognize this, cool. It's from the movie The Bourne Identity, okay? It's from the very first Bourne Identity movie, from a scene in there. I won't go into details, but it's basically, I call it my Bourne bag. And no, it's a replica. It's not the real thing. It's a replica. And I'm in the bag. He has everything he needs to escape. It's basically his go bag. It was not intended as a go bag, but it turned out to be a go bag. So I'm keeping all kinds of go stuff in here that I'm making for this video, for a different video. I have here several $100s in foreign currency and so forth that I've collected over the years. I've got some passports here that some are real, some are not, and some are borderline. Okay, and I've got all kinds of IDs from when I lived in Japan and France and England, and I guess that one was France as well, and this one was England. So I'm going to be putting all these things in the bag as kind of a prop for a video that I'm making. I'm hoping I can make the video here in the next few weeks, but I'm kind of excited to finally have a Bourne bag. So if you haven't seen The Bourne Identity, you really ought to. It's a fantastic movie. And this is the bag he gets out of the bank. Okay, we've got 11 o'clock, top of the hour. Let's go ahead and get going again here. So, what's his name? Karl Marx, and then Adam Smith. They're talking about all the problems with capitalism. By the way, Jakat, do you have any idea how to create a YouTube channel? Yeah, I know how to create YouTube channels. If you want, connect up with me and I'll show you what you need to do. Mike Lefebvre. This is a great little interview. If you have not read the interview for Mike Lefebvre, steelworker, do yourself a favor and read this, okay? I'm going to give you a little bit of background so that you can understand this in case you haven't read it. So back in Chicago in the 1970s or so, there was this author, Studs Terkel. Studs Terkel, he's a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and he was a reporter, right? He'd interview people. And his whole thing is that, you know what, there's plenty of people out there interviewing the rich and famous. The rich and famous and infamous are not in need of more reporters interviewing them. He says, nobody's out there interviewing the common man, the common person. They all want the rich and famous and infamous. So he says, I'm going to just interview working folks. And the name of the book that this is from is Working. I have a copy of it. I'm just going to interview working folks. Well, one of the folks that he interviewed was named Mike Lefebvre. And Mike Lefebvre is a dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore, crusty, cantankerous steel worker in Chicago. Everything you can imagine about a steel worker in Chicago is this guy. He's also a philosopher. He doesn't know he's a philosopher, but this man is a philosopher. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this reading through the lens of alienated labor as expressed by Karl Marx. So with that, we're going to start with this. I'll go ahead and get out of the way here for a moment. Here's two people. All right, two folks. I'll tell you male. I'll tell you male so that, I can at least say he and so forth. Tell me about these two people. Tell me, what are your first impressions? The first one on the left, high school stock shelves at Woolworths. The company doesn't exist anymore. And then stained wood. Dropped out of college, spent 3 years as a night security guard working for minimum wage. Spent 7 years working nights for FedEx, sorted freight, driving a tug and delivering packages. Whereas the person on the right, department manager for a global tech company based in the Bay Area, published writer, college professor, accomplished athlete, speaks 3 languages, has 3 degrees, including a PhD, and has lived in 5 countries. Now, my guess is you already know where this is going, but if pretend like you don't know where this is going, what are your first impressions of these 2 people? Both necessary for the society, serving different roles perhaps, but necessary for society. Yeah. What else? What do you think? First impressions. As you write up your responses and so forth, and wow, we're already almost at 15. Let me go forward and oh, by the way, one likely started with more advantages, money, connections, family. Yeah, I could see that. It's kind of like, what's your starting line privilege, right? There's this really interesting video out there that puts all these people at a starting line to race towards something, but then depending on the different advantages they had starting or disadvantages, they would start 1 foot forward or 2 feet or 3 feet ahead or 1 foot behind, and so on and so forth. So that by the time they hit start, people were all scattered across the starting line, and some people were way ahead before they even started, and some people were way behind before they ever started. Working class and upper class, yeah, kind of makes you think of 2 different classes, right? Woo, check this out. Nice. Very nice. Okay. So, again, you probably already figured this out, but here it is just to confirm what you were thinking. They're both the same people. Okay, this is me. This is how I started my career, and this is where my career ended up, and so forth. And the reason I point that out is that, excuse me, we make assumptions about people. I do. And you know what? One of my favorite things to do, I have a saying that I say a lot, is I love it when I'm wrong. And luckily, I'm wrong a lot, so I get to enjoy the feeling quite often. And one of the ways that I love it when I'm wrong is like the first day of class in a classroom, right? In-person classroom. And I'll look around and I'll look at a few people, and just judging books by covers, I go, oh, wow, you're going to be a real piece of work, aren't you? Or, oh, I'm surprised you even were able to make it out of bed today. And then I'll look at somebody else and go, oh, yeah, you're a stand-up person. You've got it going. You're sharp. And then look at that. You're well-dressed, good haircut, so on and so forth. I make a lot of assumptions. It's about 3 weeks in that I realized those assumptions were probably garbage. I've had a lot of students who at the first day made a poor impression, and they're like stellar. And then I've had a few students who are just like, they look like they walk out of GQ or something. And yet it's kind of like, is there anything going on up there? I thought you were going to be awesome, right? So the point is, we judge people based on what we see. Well, Studs Terkel shows this with Mike Lefebvre. So Mike Lefebvre starts by saying, I'm a dying breed, a laborer, strictly muscle work. Pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. All right, so you're getting a feel for this guy, right? Let's look at 4 types of alienation. Now remember, we have alienated from the product. Check out what Mike Lefebvre says. You can't take pride anymore. You remember when a guy could point to a house he built, how many logs he stacked, he built it and was proud of it. It's hard to take pride in a bridge you're never going to cross, in a door you're never going to open. You're mass producing things and you never see the end result of it. Okay? I really like this. When I was at Intel, supposedly I was helping to make chips, computer chips, but I was pretty removed from it. And so I didn't always feel like I was in the chip building business. Well, you guys as well. There may be things that supposedly you provide, your company, but can you take pride in the final output of it, right? He didn't feel like he could take pride in the final output because all he was doing was pulling steel. But people would look at the bridge and think, oh, the architecture, the engineering, the design, oh, it's amazing and beautiful. They don't think about the person who pulled the steel. Okay, we have alienation from labor. Let's see what Mike says here. Somebody's going to build something. Pyramids, Empire State Building, these things don't just happen. There's hard work behind it. I would like to see a building, say the Empire State. I would like to see on one side of it a foot-wide strip from top to bottom with the name of every bricklayer, the name of every electrician, with all the names. So when a guy walked by, he could take his son and say, see that? See, that's me over there on the 45th floor. I put the steel beam in. Picasso can point to a painting. What can I point to? A writer can point to a book. Everybody should have something to point to. I really like that. Everybody should have something to point to. What evidence is there that you produced something and that your name and your essence is associated with that? So I have Nutshell Brainery, which is great because I can point to Nutshell Brainery and it's great. Now, I like teaching. I like teaching a lot. But folks, and I'm just telling you the honest truth here. I did a bachelor's degree. I remember the name of one professor. I don't even remember the face of most of my professors in my bachelor's degree, let alone names. My master's degree, I remember 2 professors in my master's. And in my PhD, I remember 1 professor and for the wrong reasons. In other words, these are all people that I learned a lot from and I relied upon a great deal, but I don't remember them at all. I'm not just being a sad sack when I say 5 years from now, you're not going to remember me at all. You're not going to remember any of this, okay? Unless you subscribe to Nutshell Brainery and stick around, right? But that's just the nature of the beast, okay? So I don't point to my classes and say, that's something I can point to. I point to the longevity side, the Nutshell Brainery. Yeah, Mary, it's true, right? I like it too. Hang on, I'm going to make sure. Yeah, I like it a lot too. Okay, now when I was working on my PhD, I had to do a dissertation, a research study for the dissertation, and one of my participants said this, and I love this. This is what we should be able to feel. What Mike Lefebvre was not feeling, but he is. Being able to point at something and say, I did that, or I worked on that, or your random person on the street can go out and touch this thing that I worked on. The closer that the product is that I worked on to something that somebody would recognize, the better I would feel about it. To be able to say, I'm one of a couple of people who made this happen. That was a tremendous feeling of achievement, and it was a feeling that persisted. That's cool, right? That's cool. I went to a concert a couple years back, Mary Chapin Carpenter, and she talked about how she likes to walk through a grocery store when she's shopping so that and every once in a while, one of her hit songs will come on. That's kind of a cool thing, right? To be out shopping and one of your hit songs comes on the radio. Okay. Then we had alienation from oneself. Check this out. This is Mike Lefebvre again. I got chewed out by my foreman once. He said, Mike, you're a good worker, but you have a bad attitude. My attitude is that I don't get excited about my job. I do my work, but I don't say whoop-de-doo. The day I get excited about my job is the day I go to a head shrinker. How are you going to get excited about pulling steel? Now, I like this because employers are funny. They pay you for your work, but does the attitude come with the work? I mean, are you paying me for a good attitude as I'm doing something stupid and mundane and useless and doesn't really fire me up? If you're paying me for an attitude, then not only are you paying me for my work, then you need to pay me extra for the performance, okay? Now, don't get me wrong. I know, especially as an organizational psychologist and somebody expert in corporate culture and so forth, attitudes can be toxic. If somebody's bringing a really bad attitude to work and it's infecting people around them, that's a problem. But this is just a schmuck pulling steel. This is just somebody out there working, right? And it's like, if you want me to give you a performance and go whoop-de-doo as I'm pulling steel, you're going to have to pay me extra because that performance, that's different, right? Because this is just a little rant of mine. Claire, after leaving the workforce to get my degree, I felt the alienation, realized I got those things from my daughter. Having these things from work can be great, but it's centered too much. Yes. Oh, yes. Tremendous observation. Totally agree. Totally agree. Okay. I like this one too. When I was single, I could quit, just split. I wandered all over the country. You work just enough to get a poke, money in your pocket. Now I'm married and got 2 kids. And that actually says in the book, trails off. I worked on a truck dock one time when I was single. The foreman came over and he grabbed my shoulder and gave me a shove. I punched him and knocked him off the deck. I said, Doc, leave me alone. I'm doing my work. Just stay away from me. Just don't give me with the hands-on business. I like that. And he says, I would rather work my ass off 8 hours a day with nobody watching me than 5 minutes with a guy watching me. Who are you going to sock? You can't sock General Motors. You can't sock anybody in Washington. You can't sock a system. I have never come across such elegant philosophy in my entire existence. You can't sock a system. Now, I told you at the beginning of this course, a month and a half ago, you can be forgiven for forgetting. The part of the purpose of this course is the red pill to help us see the matrix and help us see how the system is using and manipulating us for its own benefit, for power acquisition and retention and all that sort of stuff. And yes, sometimes we're just beholden to the system. You can't sock a system. And, oh, yeah, I love that. I love that. just one of the best lines in history right there. Let's see. Yeah, I'll tell you that story in a moment. And then alienation from others. So now in this, just to give you a little bit of context, we're almost done. Mike Lefebvre is in a bar reading a book. And this college student comes up to him. He saw a book in my back pocket one time, and he was amazed. He walked up to me and said, "You read?" I said, "What do you mean I read?" He said, "All these dummies read the sport pages around here. What are you doing with a book?" I got pissed off at the kid right away. I said, "What do you mean all these dummies? Don't knock a man who's paying someone else's way through college." He was a 19-year-old effete snob. Okay, a few things about this that I really like. One is, when I first read this years ago, I had to look up the word effete. Mike Lefebvre, a steel worker, had to teach me vocabulary. I love that. I also like that he recognizes that everybody is contributing to society. Someone said, both are necessary in society. Raphael said that. Everybody is necessary in society. And everybody is working to educate the next generation. And yes, colleges are subsidized. So don't knock a man who's paying somebody else's way through college. We're all paying your way through college. I know you're still having to pay, but it's a lot cheaper than it would be otherwise. I really like that. Here's the final story. He said, when I was single, I could just split. Now I'm married and got 2 kids. So I used to work for FedEx. You guys know it as FedEx. It used to be called Federal Express. That's why I put the old logo, because when I was there, it was Federal Express. I was actually there when they changed their name and logo. But anyway, and I was working in the hub. It was about 3 a.m. This was in Memphis, Tennessee, working at the airport, 3 a.m. And my boss got seriously pissed off at me for something and wrote me up. Wrote me up for something I didn't do. He falsely attributed something to me. Now, I want to be really clear here, folks. 9 times out of 10, when I get in trouble, I did it. Okay, I deserve it. But this was the 1 time out of 10 that was a me. And he gets all pissed and he writes it up, puts it in my file, and now I'm no longer eligible for, raise and yada, yada, yada. So I was pissed off. And so I'm like, I'm going to quit. That's what I always did when I was being high and mighty and self-righteous as a kid, as youth. I just quit. Fine, I'm going to quit. But then I had to pause and go, wait. FedEx is helping to pay my way through college. I just had a baby with my wife, and I need the medical insurance. And for the first time, I had to say, you know what? I'm just going to have to sign the letter and move on. I can't quit. I've got the golden handcuffs. I can't quit. And 2 things occurred to me as that happened. The first thing that occurred to me is I thought, I've just made a decision that reflects a new level of maturity. I felt that I was acting with a level of maturity that I had not previously exhibited in my life. That's a good thing. The other thing I felt is that a little piece of me died, because what I was saying is I am now, to some degree or another, beholden, I don't want to overuse the word enslaved. I'm not enslaved. That's too high of a word, but I have to do this. I have to stay. And so when he said I was single, I could quit, just split, now I'm married with 2 kids, boy, when he said that, that hit me right between the eyes because of my experience with FedEx. So here's our ending quote, folks. One of the saddest lessons of history is this. If you've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, it's almost never get it back. You almost never get it back. I like this because I feel that this is what the power institutions of capitalism have done, is they've bamboozled us into thinking this is the only way the system can be, and we should not look at fixing it. We should not look at amending it. It's okay if we have multi-billionaires, and it's okay if we have people struggling down here. It's just the way it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. Once again, I'm a fan of capitalism. I vote for it. But that doesn't mean that we can't continue to address it and try to amend it, ameliorate it, and improve it. And over the next few lectures, we're going to talk about some of the ways that we have improved it since this day and ways that we are trying to continue to improve it. So there you go, folks. You did fantastic with the comments. I was nervous there at the beginning. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I alone? So great work. As always, do me a favor, send me an email. Let me know that you attended and that you participated, and I take care of you with all these points. And I'll stick around. If you have any questions or anything, then let me know and we can talk through them. Otherwise, we are set. Raphael says real quick, fun fact about FedEx is the owner gambled. Yes, I know the story. The owner gambled last money they had before going bankrupt, able to save the company. Yeah, it was so they could make payroll. That's the way the story goes. Fred Smith was the owner and founder of FedEx. And the story goes that they were not going to be able to make payroll. So they said, well, screw it. They flew to Vegas and said, we're going to gamble everything we've got. And if we lose, we go bankrupt. If we win, we can make payroll. And they won and made payroll. Might be an apocryphal story, but I've heard it many times. My father-in-law was actually one of the first employees at FedEx, and he tells amazing stories about the beginning of the company. So yeah, really fascinating. Hey, Mary, thank you too. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was a good company to work for. Raphael, we'll see you later. Thank you. We'll see you, Claire. Hey, thank you very much for your contributions today. Deeply appreciated. We're almost done. Yes, we are. Got the puppy saying, let's go. All right, things are looking pretty quiet, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. We will catch you guys next week. Have a great one. Thanks.